Okay, so there's a few things. Here is my secret sauce. This is, I know people are going to be like, oh, that's your secret sauce, but it really is true. I've raised just over $375 million to date. I am working on another capital raise right now, which will take us over the $400 million mark. So these are tried and true across many, many, many iterations and many, many different investments with many different investors. And what I would say is number one, this is a relationship game. There's nothing more complex about it. I know everyone wants some kind of like creative spreadsheet or something that's going to magically convince an investor to invest with you. It's not. This is a relationship game. You have to build your relationships with your investors before you have a deal available. If you wait until you have a deal, you are going to be too late. It will take you way too long to establish the trust that you need in order to raise that capital. So that's number one. Number two, do what you say you're going to do all the time. If I tell an investor, I will send you an update by Friday, guess what happens on Friday? There is an update going out. And if for whatever reason, let's say I have to wait on a third party to give me information to get that update to Susie Smith, I'm going to reach out on Friday and say, hey, Susie, I just want you to know I am actively working on the request. I've already done A, B, and C. I'm waiting on DEF. And the new deadline for me to get this to you looks like it'll be Tuesday next week. And always give yourself a little bit of wiggle room because things always end up going wrong. But when you do that, you build trust. You're building trust with your investor that, okay, I didn't get the thing I was hoping for or expecting, but I got communication about what happened and why it happened. Investors will put up with what you ask them if you explain why you're asking them to do this. And so if there's a what, there has to always be a why. And so that's the second thing. And then the third thing I will say, and this is the thing I see most investors make a mistake on, it is not using a proper securities attorney. So we work with Nick McGrew of Polymath Legal out of Los Angeles. I've been working with him for like 15 years now. I've had a very long-standing relationship with him. He has done our documents on more deals than I can even count. Working with him is a lot of credibility in and of itself because he's very selective. He isn't going to work with just any Tom, Dick, and Harry that shows up and pays him money. He's only working with legitimate operators, legitimate sponsors, as far as he can tell, right? So working with a legitimate securities attorney adds a lot of credibility for your investors to say, hey, not only do we know what we're doing, we hire the best, we work with the best, they want to work with us, they continue working with us. And being able to have that kind of confidence from a securities attorney is really helpful when you're dealing with investors because they need to be protected, right? You're dealing with their money and this is their hard-earned capital. So you have to protect your investors. Those documents not only protect them, they also protect you as a sponsor. And as far as how to get them to keep returning, it's really all about the investor experience. I had a deal that I exited. I was working on it. I had partners on the deal that I'm no longer partnered with today. And our JV partner on that deal, his investors were not happy with his level of communication and started reaching out to me. And, out of respect for my partner, I was like, hey, it's kind of a little bit of a gray area. If I'm the one communicating with you, you really need to go to my JV partner who is your contact. And the response back was, no, I don't want to work with them anymore because they don't communicate with me. I don't mind that things didn't go the way they had told me, which wasn't even, I mean, we made money on that deal. We delivered a double-digit return. So it actually went well for all intents and purposes, but they weren't getting the level of communication that they wanted or expected or were told. And so what happens is, despite the project doing well and then making money, they weren't being communicated or they didn't feel taken care of. They just felt like another number. And so that relationship got totally tarnished for no reason. There was no reason for that to happen. And that investor said, I'm no longer working with name of X partner. And he said, I want to know what deals you're leading and you're doing because your communication with me has been top notch. So when I say it's really about the relationship, it really is. Treat people the way you want to be treated. It's so simple.
Wow, so much there. I'm just going to unplug my microphone so I don't interrupt anymore. Keep going. Uh,
Oh,
but
no, you're good. You're good.
no, you're absolutely right about the relationship thing, and so much of business, especially I don't know, especially, but definitely, it's definitely true in real estate, is about relationships and communication. Like you said, if you say you're gonna give an update on Friday, when Friday comes, even if you have no changes, today's update is there is no
No
update,
changes.
but here I
Yep.
am.
Yep.
But also, when you're talking about an attorney, like an SEC attorney, I tell you what, finding the right representation, that's an investment in its own right. And that's not where you want to start, budgeting, and finding the best deal on legal, on an
Correct.
attorney. So you're absolutely right. And with that's a partnership in itself, and finding the right attorney, like you said, um, it brings credibility as well as, of course, that the level of safety and reliability. So when it comes to capital raising, do you have a particular philosophy there, or do you, when you have the deal, does the deal, do you try to match the right deal with the right investors, or how do you manage the relationships there?
Yeah. So when we first started, I had like 25 and potential investors in my database. Today, we actually don't even have that many today. It's probably close to like 4,000 or 5,000. It's not that many comparative to how much money we're raising. Last year, that one deal that we did, we had to raise 66, 67 million dollars. So, and that was in 8 weeks. So we have to have a pretty wide net. So I'd say even for 5,000, we have a lot of really excited investors who are loyal to us, who really understand the relationship that we have. And each of those relationships has been built brick by brick by brick. There is not a shortcut when it comes to building the relationship. You have to do it genuinely. People will sense if you are being disingenuous. People are not stupid. You are not smarter than them. You know, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I'm smarter. I could do blah, 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 blah. I'm like, don't do that. It's going to come off disingenuous. And when they find out, people are going to feel like you are getting one over on them, or you're doing something that's like not very trustworthy or transparent. People aren't going to invest with you like that. They want to invest with people they know, like, and trust. So tell them who you are so they know you. Explain how you show up with the same character and morals, right? Character and integrity is what you do when nobody's looking, not what happens when you're on a stage and everyone can see. It's what do you do when no one's looking, right? Like, um, if you find someone's wallet on the ground, do you pick it up and do you look through it and take the money out? Or do you take it and go through it to figure out who it belongs to and try to contact the owner, right? Like they're same scenario, nobody's watching, but it's how you show up. So if you're the latter, right, then I can say, okay, you do this when no one's watching. I can only imagine what you're going to do when everyone's watching, right? You're going to show up the same. But if you're willing to change who you are when there's no spotlight, there's no accountability, that's a big problem because this requires a lot of trust. And in order for you to build that trust, you have to be a person of integrity. It's just that simple. And quite frankly, as someone in this space and as an investor myself, I would rather that bad operators, people who are not trustworthy, get weeded out and can't do deals because it makes it worse for the rest of us that are operating really good businesses with really great relationships.
Totally agree with that. In fact, when I'm investing with borrowed money, especially when it comes to the relationships I built along the way, I like to call it grandma's money. You know, I want to treat that better than I would treat my own.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's like the prime directive, the capital, rule is, protect investor capital.
At all costs.
So, how do you structure these deals? And I think, like before, how do you keep them coming back? Is there particular incentives? Do you structure it any differently than other funds?